Welcome to another deep dive. We're plunging into a topic that, well, it dominates marketing discussions and budgets these days. Influencer marketing.
Absolutely. It's huge. We're talking a multi-billion-dollar industry, something like $17.4 billion projected recently.
Right. And you see figures like 80% of U.S. companies are already using influencers in some way. There's so much buzz, especially around the big names.
Mm-hmm.
But for all that hype and all the investment, are we really asking the right questions? Especially about where our marketing dollars actually work best for driving, actual sales.
That's the core issue, isn't it?
Yeah. So our mission today is to cut through that noise and tackle a really crucial question, particularly for direct-to-consumer or DTC firms.
A really practical one.
Exactly. It's a question that could really change how you think about spending your marketing budget. When your main goal is immediate revenue, should you target influencers with low followerships or high followerships?
And to guide us, we're diving deep into a fascinating and pretty groundbreaking new paper. It's called Revenue Generation Through Influencer Marketing. It's by Beichert, Bayerl, Goldenberg, and Lanz, just out in the Journal of Marketing in 2024. What makes this study so significant, really, is that it seems to be the first to look at the whole picture, the entire influencer marketing funnel.
The whole funnel. What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, they track everything, from an influencer's followers to who they actually reach with a post, how people engage with it, and then this is the key bit, the actual revenue generated.
Wow, okay.
And importantly, they factor in the cost of those paid endorsements, which is often, overlooked.
That cost piece feels massive because for years people talked about influencer marketing driving sales, but like you said, a lot of the research focused on softer things.
Yeah, exactly. Softer metrics. Like how many people saw the content or liked it or maybe followed the influencer back.
All useful for certain goals, maybe brand awareness, but not directly revenue.
Right. And crucially, the cost of paying that influencer was often just missing from the analysis.
So it's like judging the success of an ad campaign without knowing how much the ad cost to run.
Pretty much, which is why this paper is such a step forward. It fills a really critical gap, especially when you look at this ongoing debate, high followers versus low followers. Who's actually better?
Right. And you mentioned past findings sometimes favored the big names.
Yeah, but often those studies looked at unpaid endorsements. Maybe a celebrity just happens to like a product, or the studies just didn't have the cost data.
Gotcha.
This paper zeroes in specifically on paid endorsements. That's where the real investment for DTC firms happens. And that's where the risk is, too.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
So basically, marketers were kind of flying blind, or at least partially blind, on the actual ROI for these paid influencer campaigns.
You could definitely say that. There was a significant blind spot, especially concerning profitability. This paper really aims to bring clarity, shifting focus from just exposure to, actual financial results.
Makes sense. But getting that kind of data, tracking sales directly back to one specific influencer post sounds incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Attribution is always a challenge. How do they manage that?
They used a really smart and rigorous approach. They combined two key things: large-scale empirical data and controlled field studies.
Okay.
So first, the empirical data. They got secondary sales data from, and I quote, one of Europe's leading DTC fashion firms.
Wow, okay. Real-world data.
And not just a little bit. We're talking 1,881,533 purchases, over 17 million in revenue, all linked meticulously to 2,808 unique sponsored Instagram posts.
That's a lot of data.
It is, from 1,698 different influencers, and they covered the whole spectrum: nano, micro, and macro influencers.
Nano, micro, macro. Can you just quickly define those again?
Sure. So generally, nano influencers are under 10,000 followers. Micro are typically, say, 10,000 to 100,000, and macro are over 100,000.
Got it. And how did they link the sales so cleanly?
The clever part. They consistently used influencer-specific discount codes. So if you bought something using Influencer A's code, they knew that sale came directly from Influencer A's post. Very clean attribution.
That's brilliant. Takes out a lot of the guesswork.
Definitely. But they didn't stop there. To make sure the findings were solid and to control for potential biases, like maybe certain influencers only post about sales events or things like that.
Right.
They also ran 3 full-fledged field studies, proper experiments.
Okay.
These involved 319 paid nano and macro influencers working with 2 different DTC firms, another one in fashion and one in beauty.
And how were these controlled?
Well, they could manage variables. For instance, they made sure influencers didn't cross-post the content on other platforms. They controlled the timing of the posts, the specific products being promoted, even the content creation process to some extent. It adds another layer of confidence.
So multiple methods, tons of data, clean attribution. Sounds thorough. They weren't just looking at likes, they were tracking actual money. What specific metrics did they focus on to measure success? The ROI.
Yes. They actually surveyed senior influencer marketing managers first to figure out what the most important ROI metrics were in practice.
Smart. So what came out on top?
3 main ones. First, revenue per follower. Simple enough. Total revenue generated divided by the influencer's number of followers.
Okay.
Second, revenue per reach. This one's a bit more nuanced because it accounts for Instagram's algorithm. It's revenue generated per follower who actually saw the post.
Because not everyone sees every post from accounts they follow.
Exactly. And third, the big one, the cost-inclusive metric. Return on influencer spend, or ROIs.
ROIs, how's that calculated?
It's revenue minus cost divided by cost. So, for every euro or dollar you spend on the influencer, how much profit do you get back?
That's the bottom line, really.
Yeah.
Profitability.
Precisely. And what's fascinating here is they didn't just look at the sales figures. They looked at the profitability of those sales. That's a massive leap forward for the industry, moving beyond just gross revenue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so they did all this work, gathered all this data. What was the big reveal? What did they find consistently across both the huge data set and the field studies?
The core finding was incredibly consistent and maybe surprising for some.
Lay it on us.
Low followership influencers, specifically the nano influencers, provide a significantly higher ROI than the high followership macro influencer.
Significantly higher.
Like a little bit higher or?
No, like an order of magnitude higher. It was really stark.
Wow. Okay, give me some numbers.
Sure. In the main secondary data analysis, nano influencers averaged a revenue per follower of 0.265.
Okay.
Macro influencers, only 0.049.
That's what, more than 5 times higher for the nanos?
Exactly. 5 times higher revenue per follower. And look at the ROIs, the return on influencer spend.
Yeah.
Nano influencers had an ROIs of 17.85, meaning for every euro spent, they brought back almost 18 in profit.
Essentially, yes, after covering the cost. Compare that to macro influencers, whose ROIs was just 4.67.
Still positive, but way, way lower. 17.85 versus 4.67. That's huge.
It's a massive difference.
But wait, I can hear some marketers thinking, okay, the ROI is lower per follower for macros, but surely they reach more people. Don't they still generate more total revenue overall?
That's a fair question, and yes, they do generate more total revenue. In the study, macro influencers generated about 6 times more total revenue than nano influencers.
Ah, okay. So maybe it's worth it for the scale.
But, and this is the crucial part, their associated costs were 18 times higher than the costs for nano influencers.
18 times. So you get 6x the revenue, but pay 18x the cost. That math doesn't look good.
Not if your goal is efficiency and profitability, no. And the field studies just hammered this home. Low followership targeting was superior for ROI by factors ranging from 17 all the way up to 114, even when they deliberately paid the macro influencers at least 3 times more.
Factors of 17 to 114. That's just staggering. So what does this all mean? It seems that for direct revenue, the bigger the audience, the less efficient your spend becomes. It flips the common assumption on its head.
It really does. And the paper digs into why. Why does this happen?
Yeah.
The answer seems to lie firmly in engagement.
Engagement. We hear that word a lot. How does it connect here?
Their analysis, specifically a mediation analysis, showed that the lower engagement typically found with higher followership levels directly helps explain the lower ROI for bigger influencers.
Okay, unpack that. Lower engagement leads to lower ROI.
Yes. They found that engagement levels, both how followers engaged with the influencer before the sponsored post and how the influencer engaged back, partially mediated or explained that negative link between follower count and ROI.
So bigger audience equals less engagement, which equals less return per dollar spent.
That's the mechanism they identified. And this ties in beautifully with a concept called social capital theory.
Social capital theory. Okay, what does that tell us here?
Well, the theory suggests that as an online community, or an influencer's following, grows larger, the quality of the social ties weakens. Things like commitment and reciprocity tend to decrease.
Commitment and reciprocity. What do those mean in this context?
Commitment is about the follower's psychological attachment, their loyalty, how willing they are to actually spend time and effort interacting, like writing thoughtful comments, not just liking.
Right, like a real connection.
Exactly. And reciprocity is that feeling of mutual obligation, that back and forth that keeps interactions going and supportive. With huge audiences, those things naturally dilute.
That makes so much sense intuitively. It's like the difference between talking at a small group of friends versus shouting into a stadium. The connection quality is just different.
Absolutely. It's like your friend recommending a product versus a celebrity you barely know doing an ad. The trust and the likelihood to act are different.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's not just about the numbers, it's about the quality of the connection.
And they back this up with more data, too. They did textual analysis of comments using tools like LIWC,
LIWC.
linguistic inquiry, and word count. It analyzes the language used. They found followers of nano-influencers used significantly more signs of authentic and positive language.
Like what?
More personal pronouns, I, we, more words related to social processes. It indicates a stronger, more personal connection.
Fascinating.
And they also used LSM, which stands for language style matching.
Language style matching. What does that measure?
It looks at how people talk, their use of function, words, prepositions, articles, not just what they say. Higher matching scores suggest greater rapport and closeness.
And what do they find with LSM?
Nano-influencers had significantly higher LSM scores with their followers, 0.886 compared to micro, 0.868, and especially macro influencers, 0.855.
So literally, they talk more like their followers, more cohesion.
Yes, it points to that greater closeness, that tighter community feel.
Okay, so the evidence stacks up. Smaller communities, higher engagement, better language matching, stronger connection, and ultimately much better ROI for direct sales.
That's the story the data tells.
So for you listening, especially if you're running a DTC business, what's the practical takeaway? What should you do with this information?
The implication is pretty direct. If your main goal is immediate revenue, the highest ROI comes from targeting nano-influencers.
Not just for a small part of the budget, but
The paper is quite bold here. It basically says, when deliberating where to invest the first euro, it should be in the most profitable influencer type, which is nano-influencers.
the first euro.
But, they continue, this applies not just to the first euro. Also, the second and all further euros should be invested in nano-influencers until the budget is exhausted.
Wow. That's a really strong directive for anyone focused purely on maximizing revenue from their influencer spend.
It is. It suggests a fundamental shift in strategy away from chasing reach towards optimizing for profitable engagement.
And is this actually practical? I mean, managing hundreds of nano-influencers sounds like a nightmare compared to one big contract with a macro.
That's a valid concern, but the paper addresses it. They note that specialized third-party services and data providers, basically, influencer marketing platforms, exist now.
The platforms.
Yeah. These platforms enable marketers to work with hundreds of low followership influencers at the same time and efficiently leverage their potential
Okay.
at the labor cost of handling only one high followership influencer. So technology makes scaling this nano-influencer approach feasible.
That's a game changer. It means you can build a system to manage this effectively. It's not just theory.
Exactly. It also really underlines the importance of understanding that whole influencer marketing funnel we talked about earlier.
Right. From followers to reach, engagement, and finally, revenue.
Yes. For DTC firms especially, you need that full view for accurate attribution and to calculate the true ROI. You can't just stop at reach or engagement metrics if sales are your goal.
So it's not a blanket rule to ignore the big guns entirely, but it forces us to be much more strategic with our marketing dollars, especially if immediate revenue is the priority.
Precisely. This study provides powerful evidence for that specific goal. But it also opens up broader questions and acknowledges some nuances.
Like what? Does this mean macro influencers are useless?
Not necessarily. The paper is careful to point out that while nano-influencers are superior for revenue generation, macro-influencers probably still make sense if your main goal is different.
Like brand awareness.
Exactly. If you just want sheer reach, getting your brand name seen by as many eyeballs as possible, macros still deliver that broad exposure. It's about aligning the influencer type with the campaign objective.
So strategy matters. You need to know why you're using influencers before deciding which ones.
Absolutely. It's not a one-size-fits-all answer. And the
Well-
paper also flags areas for future research, which are pretty interesting.
Such as?
Well, looking beyond the extremes, investigating those mid-level influencers, the micros, how do they perform?
Good point.
Also, understanding different incentive structures. What happens with product gifting instead of fixed fees? Or performance-based pay, does that change things?
Yeah, the compensation model could definitely play a role.
And looking at the longer term, this study focused on immediate revenue, What about customer lifetime value? Do customers acquired through nano-influencers stick around longer?
That would be fascinating to know, the long-term impact.
One other thing they mentioned was the role of platform algorithms, like on TikTok.
Oh, right. You mentioned that briefly. How could that play in?
Well, if platforms like TikTok increasingly use algorithms that actively favor lower followership levels in their boosts, as the paper puts it,
Uh-huh.
that could create these cascades of influence from smaller accounts and essentially amplify the findings of the study even further. The platforms themselves might start pushing power towards the nanos.
So the tech landscape itself might be evolving in a way that reinforces this trend towards smaller, more engaged communities being more impactful for certain goals.
It seems plausible. It suggests the whole ecosystem might be shifting.
This deep dive really just underscores how vital it is to look past those easy, surface-level metrics like follower counts. For generating direct revenue, especially in DTC, this study makes a powerful case that the real leverage isn't in the widest possible reach, but in the deepest connection.
Yeah, the nano-influencers deliver significantly better ROI precisely because of that higher, more authentic engagement. Quality really seems to trump quantity here.
It really does.
And this raises a really important question, I think, beyond just marketing in this incredibly noisy digital world we live in.
Yeah.
Are we maybe entering an era where that authentic, smaller scale influence consistently outweighs the broad but maybe fleeting exposure of celebrity?
Not just in marketing, but maybe in how we connect and trust information generally.
Exactly. Is that deeper, more genuine connection becoming the more valuable currency online?
That is definitely something to think about, a provocative thought to end on as you navigate your own digital world and maybe even rethink how you build connections yourself.
Food for thought.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this look at influencer marketing ROI has given you some surprising facts and maybe some valuable insights to consider.